when was the last time you were mean to me?
I don't know. They said you can't stop being mean to Doug. I said, that's nothing. You should, wait till I see him in person. He's going to really cop it.
I don't know why people thought you were being mean. I thought people would see we're just breaking balls.
Yeah, we're just two guys having fun, right?
That should show you how sensitive we are these days.
Yeah.
So, tell me a little about Camille. What are some things that we should know about her? She's a copywriter, right?
Yeah, well, I think she's a very good copywriter, but she's also, very good at content strategy, marketing, design. I think it would be good to ask her about her experiences at Marketer Hire, but she was only there for a short while, and now she's gone to Dooley, and Dooley's helps integrate Salesforce, which is CRM. So I know something about that, and we can ask her about that. But we probably really should, lead off with, how did you get kicked off LinkedIn for a week? I mean, I think that's a fascinating story in itself, right? And
yeah, so a lot of people keep reaching out to me about many other people keep getting kicked off for a week because of unusual activity. So I would love to jump in on that one.
Yeah, well, we'll see. So and Camille's here in Denver. She's south of me, and so we got that to talk about. It's 100. I don't know how hot is it in Chicago today. It's 100 degrees here in Colorado, or 97 or something.
We're having a bit of a drought. Everything's brown. So it's been 90, 98. Keep fluctuating. It's been hot.
Right.
Hot and dry, which is unusual for here.
Can you hear me all right? Because I'm sitting downstairs. I had to sort of bring all my little...
You're good. You're good to me.
Yeah, I got my good audio in, so...
How's your nephew working out?
He's being amazing. He's just great. The rock star. Everyone loves him. He just made a huge difference.
So why don't you make him a driver?
Not allowed to.
Okay. Oh, because of his age or whatever?
No, he's old enough. He doesn't have a US driver's license, so...
Okay. Oh, God. Oh, right.
Insurance-wise, it'd kill us if something happened. So... And he's not that...
Why are you driving so much? You keep telling me that your driver is shortage, but...
We are. There's a huge short... Nationally, it's crippling the industry. There's not enough people that want to work.
Because of COVID bucks.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Seriously, $1,500 or $1,300 is enough for people to go, I'm not going to work anymore.
Well, it's not that. It's the constant, whatever they're getting, $600 a week or $800 a week or what. I don't know what the hell it is. I have no idea. It's crazy.
I have no idea. I don't get any of that money.
Did we I'm assuming we sent the invite to Camille because she was on the...
We did. She accepted it.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Do you know her text number?
No, Camille.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good. Just sort of like in back-to-backs right now, so I'm not looking my best. Hopefully this isn't a super visual medium, but
yeah, look, you got two old ugly guys. You look a whole lot better than we do. Trust me.
No, you guys look great. The lighting is great. Like we're all beautiful.
So Camille, I don't know if you know, but Doug is actually 100% deaf, and so we have to use Google Meet because he has to translate. He sees what has been spoken. I actually don't think he is deaf. I think it's an act so he can meet women, and that's just how people from Chicago talk. But he tells me he's deaf, but I have no idea. I've never met him. Right?
Well, either way, great to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
So
this is your guy. You told me you wanted this young lady on our show. You told me months ago. I said, wait. She's going to steal my shine. So we finally got her on the show.
No, I would never. I would never do that. No.
Camille's a rock star, and the even better part is she's from Colorado, and so I think, where are you, Camille? I'm in Longmont or Boulder County, so north of you, probably. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. No, I'm actually in Aurora, so yeah, just south of Denver, I guess.
Okay.
We just moved here about last year, like beginning of last year,
Oh,
right
yeah.
right at the pandemic, actually.
Oh, perfect place to move to Colorado then.
Yeah.
So I think that, Doug and I have an unusual relationship because we work together on, weird stuff. And we, like a lot of people, thought it would be a good idea to have a podcast, having no idea how to run a podcast or who would even bother showing up. But people did. And, I think that the reason I think we wanted to reach out to you was you established a really good brand and a lot of credibility quickly. And I think that's not easy to do on LinkedIn. And so I think that high levels of engagement. But I think the first question is, well, why don't you just quickly introduce yourself? Because not everyone knows the Camille Trent story.
Sure. Yeah. So Camille Trent is my name, as you said. I am the head of content at Dually for about 8 days now, going 8 days strong. Just joined the team last week. Before that, I was the managing editor at Marketer Hire. And before that, I did various, I would say, content marketing work, but essentially started in copywriting on more of like the brand agency side. Did that for a few years. Kind of wanted to back up because I started as a specialist, I guess, as a copywriter. Wanted to back up and sort of understand marketing and how copywriting influences everything, or what part that it plays, like in the whole thing. Because in retrospect, I think what I was frustrated about is I didn't control anything to do with the distribution. I mean, you can control it as much as you can with copywriting, but a lot of what I was doing was more traditional and for events or for big tech companies. So enterprise tech like Linksys, Belkin, HP, like HP. So we're working with those types of companies, and because of that, doing some more like traditional plays. And so essentially, what would happen is I would make something, we'd make some sort of asset, and we would sort of hand it over to those teams, and then didn't necessarily get to control or know even what happened to those things. Sometimes we often get feedback from the marketer from the work that we delivered, but we didn't always get to see like the metrics and the follow-up. And so I think because of that, I knew that I kind of needed to back up and understand marketing. And so the ways that I did that, because I was also very sick of commuting, was I worked in Galveston, actually, at a fishing pier / restaurant for a while. Worked for an entrepreneur that had like a few different things going on, and was just kind of trying to like launch different businesses or learn like social media for B2C. So learned some valuable things. Learned a little bit of like local SEO. Learned just like a lot of things about marketing and some things that do and don't work. But really just kind of learning how to work without a budget. So did that really just for a few months, and then joined a bank. So I kind of wanted to go back to B2B, liked that type of content better, and was sort of hired as a writer. Helped write their new website. They had like a 90s website at the time, so just had that project, but then also figuring out what our products were really, and getting each of those things separated, kind of having like sales enablement tools that way to hand people. So learning ads too, though, like we were launching like ads in newspapers and trying to hit like so again, pretty like old school, but actually worked really well for the demographic that we're going for, because we're selling things like CDs to kind of like an older demographic that just wants to put their money in a safe place. And so had to kind of learn how to track things that were like virtually untrackable, and getting like an entire team to help me do that. So probably a lot more context than you wanted, but the short version is Started as kind of a brand copywriter in an agency setting, moved to 2 different like in-house positions as really a generalist marketer, looking back on it, but with an emphasis on communications and content marketing. And then moved into SaaS, or at least tech at Marketer Hire, and I had a more like traditional content marketing role, like writing long form blogs, still doing some copywriting, some sales enablement, and social. And then during this time, towards the end of my working at the bank, and then joining Marketer Hire, I was just sort of practicing marketing on LinkedIn. That's sort of how I think about it, right? Is that it was a way for me to sort of test a channel, test just basically a marketing campaign, like can you drive audience, right? And which is like a big goal for a lot of marketers, is like, can we build an audience? And more so than that, can you build an engaged audience, and be focused enough to show up so that it's consistent? Because I think that's the thing that people have the biggest problem with, is either keeping quality up or keeping consistency up. It's usually one or the other, and you have a strength in either direction. And so for me, like coming from a content background, the quality part of it was the more natural thing. If I have a certain bar of what I think is good content, and then the consistency part was sort of the challenge of, am I going to do this, or am I not going to do it? And because if I decided I was going to do it, then I was going to do it. And so that essentially I just turned on a switch of like, okay, I'm going to like post every day. Did that beginning of August last year, so not quite a year now. But just really decided that I was going to at least show up, and that I was going to engage. And then I basically found that by engaging, just being active on the platform and sort of having a pretty decent understanding of what everyone else was doing, and specifically what other marketers were doing and content marketers, and deciding that's what I was going to focus on, and that's what I knew enough to talk about, that sort of informed everything else. That would give me ideas for the content, that would tell me what other people liked, what was working, what was not working. And and then it was just going deeper in that one thing, and just trying not to be distracted by Twitter and Clubhouse and all of those things. And it's not until I think that you have a good cadence with those things, that you've actually committed to one strategy, that I think that it makes sense to add another channel. And so since being, this is I guess a good segue into when I was locked out of LinkedIn or kicked off LinkedIn.
Tell us about that. That's very interesting, because I'm amazed that Doug and I haven't been kicked off. But if you've been kicked off, there's no hope for us.
Well, yeah, so I can give you some insight into it. So as a content marketer, and as someone who's very interested in content and distribution, I had started thinking, okay, how can I make everything that I create into some sort of a flywheel? And so one way that I thought about doing this was on LinkedIn, which is the platform that I was most interested in and most engaged in. I was now connected with a lot of marketers, right? And so it was just a good place for me to collect data, or like that's a bad way of putting it. Collect insights is really what I mean, like expert insights from people, and a way for me to give back for people that wanted to be featured, because we had a pretty good presence, like one of the better marketing blogs out there, and so was getting more and more requests of people that wanted to guest blog or do things like that. And so for us, we still wanted to be able to keep up a quality control. We had a small team. And so the next best thing is just getting more contributors per blog post. So what I started doing was when I was doing these kind of like long guides, like these very comprehensive, all of the email marketing tools, all of the content marketing tools, I do these different guides. And so I just started asking my audience, because what those actual email marketers or actual content marketers are using is what I want to include, not just like a regurgitated version of the last one that was published by another MarTech vendor. And so in trying to make it as journalistic as possible while still just being like a factual list, I would go to these social channels and say, hey, email marketers, like, what are your favorite platforms that you use and why? And so then they would respond. And so it ended up being a great way to engage and to have like those conversations with which I think is the point of social media, is to just start conversations and continue those conversations. But then it was also like a good way for me to get content for my blogs. And so so I started just like I would copy all of those responses, make sure that I included all of their URLs into the piece. And so I suspect that was the thing that set it off, because I did this for maybe I think I did this for 4 articles. And so I would do it usually like all in one day, where I would get I would view all of their pages to, like, 1, make sure that they were legit, and then 2, make sure that I attributed them correctly in the post, like made sure that I gave them a link back, which is usually what they're looking for, is just credit for their work, right? And that's what I had promised in these posts too. And so during this time, LinkedIn had, I think, like changed their algorithm. And so I think that it limits the amount of pages and profiles that you can view, because then I got a couple warnings that I was viewing too many pages, or actually wasn't that specific. It just said too much traffic, like too high of traffic volume, like something very.
Well, they just accused you of being some sort of super aggregator.
Yeah, like the warnings were basically, your traffic volume is too high, and it seems to be through a software, right? That you're using some sort of a software. And that was the only thing that I could think. I was like, well, I am going to these pages back to back, but it's everyone that commented, so it should be like obvious that, you know, that I'm not just like scouring the web, like trying to steal people's data, but these are actually people that engaged on my posts, and that I want to know who they are, and then also attribute them correctly in these articles. So because I was using it that way, I'm guessing that's what set it off, because that's the only thing I'd done differently. And then also, once I'd published the actual piece, I would message everyone that was included to let them know that they were included, and then I would tag them in the post. So those were the only things that I was doing differently last month. And I did, to be fair, get a couple warnings that said the 2 warnings that said the same thing, like basically back to back, that were like, too high of traffic volume, disconnect all your software. Both times I kind of thought it was a fluke, because I was like, hey, I'm not using any software. But yeah, so this must just like be a mistake. And then I got shut down for good, and they're saying, oh, this is a permanently restricted account, like you're not getting it back. And so I emailed back and forth, and just kept getting the same response of that I had warnings and stuff. So the big disconnect for me was.
Did you freak out? Like, were you pissed off, or were you like freaking out, thinking, I've just lost, my whole year's work?
Yeah, so my husband said that I went through like the different stages of grief with it, I think. Like, I really was like in denial at first. I was like, this is not happening. Like, we can figure this out. Like, if I can just talk to someone about this, like I can explain, or at least can try and figure out what is causing this. Because even with that, I was like, it's not an unreasonable amount of pages that I went to. Like, that can't be it. And so so anyways, but then I realized after a while, after I was like emailing back and forth, emailed a few different reps, and they all were telling me the same thing. Then I was starting to freak out a little bit, and I was just sort of like mad at myself, because I was like, I should have done a few different things. I was like, I should have backed up my data. I should have had my post saved somewhere else. Like, I should have tried another platform, because I kind of realized this is the only place that that I can connect with certain people, like that I know certain people. And luckily I did a couple things right, in that I had joined a few different communities from there. Like I was in a Discord, I was in like a few different Slack channels, sort of because of LinkedIn and because of different invites. And so I was able to reach out to a few people that way. I have a Twitter account, but I just really wasn't using it. And so that was another thing, is I know people do both, and I like believe in that focus, like especially up front. But I was like, you do need to diversify, and that was my other lesson from it, is like, at some point, like you do have to like make sure you're not accessible in one channel that you're not in control over, which is most digital channels at this point that you're not fully in control over. And so so being able to kind of diversify is probably the best word.
So how did you get back? Tell us, what did you actually end up speaking to a human?
Yeah, I mean, so I did speak to, I think, a few different humans, but I think that it was mostly, like, to be fair to them, like policy of like they had kind of like templated scripts that they could tell me, you know, there I'm sure is like a certain number of warnings, and it's like 3 strikes you're out type of a thing. And so I could.
It's LinkedIn. It's not. I mean, it's LinkedIn. What the hell?
Yeah. And so I think it's a combination of like they changed their algorithm, didn't really let people know that they had changed it or what the new rules were. And then even when you get warnings, it wasn't clear what you had done. So it's hard to correct. And I think there are other triggers like the way that they define pages, I think is different. So anyways, those are the things, but I'm not even totally sure how, like what it was that got me back. But I do know that Zoe, one of my coworkers, did kind of like a little bit of a social movement to try and raise the awareness that I was locked out. And I think that helped a little bit. But did fill out their form that they sent through that of like, hey, you need to get her to fill out this form. I did that, and I basically still got a no. So a couple other things though that I did was I went to Twitter, and I'd heard that their Twitter like help support, LinkedIn support there was pretty good, and so I had reached out to them. It took a while for me to get a response, but when I did get the response, they're like, hey, it looks like you already got back in. So so it was that, and then I had reached out to a LinkedIn employee too that had offered to help someone else through Twitter, and so I just asked him for advice and like directions of where I could go from here, what would be the best way to move forward, and so he helped me as well. So I think it was partly due to that. And then also, my new employer, so at Dually, they were all trying to help as best they could, and I think that their push there made a difference as well.
Do you think that there's the decision to reinstate you rests with just some guy sitting in an office in the corner somewhere? This just sounds bizarre. I mean, I don't understand it. It's LinkedIn.
So I think it's such a big company. I think this was mainly what I learned is there's such a big company, so they're trying to make it as process driven as possible. But when you do that, when it's just purely process and triggers, then it can be hard to reason, like to talk to a person, just be like, hey, this is the situation. I'm not sure what you're seeing or why it looks this way, but this was my activity. This is exactly, what I'd done. And I can't understand like which thing that I was violating too, because I'd asked, which violations, which things, which terms like were problematic, and they'd sent me like a bulleted list, and I said I haven't done any of these things to my knowledge. Like I none of the things that I've done fall into this. The only thing that came close was just getting someone's name, title, and company to be able to attribute them correctly on the blogs. And so the only way around that would be if I asked them, which seems silly because their information is just right there. And so the only thing I could think is that like that could be viewed as scraping if I'm copy and pasting that information.
I mean, I just think it just seems bizarre that you get banned for, stuff as trivial as that. I mean, I kind of think you should get banned if you ran over their dog or slept with their sister or something, but not like this. Just sounds bizarre to me. And then getting back and without any reason of, you're back. Okay, fine.
Right. So that's, that was like the more confusing thing is that, just not necessarily even after a week understanding what happened, like both what I did wrong and then how I could prevent it in the future. And so, I think the biggest takeaway from that is that it's all borrowed, like you don't actually own anything, and so you have to take steps, I think, to proactively kind of like protect yourself, or at least take those conversations offline. Make sure if you really want to be in touch with someone that you have their email or you have another way of contacting them. Yeah.
I mean, I think you both posted in the last couple of days very relevant posts on that. I know Doug posted something on, what if you didn't have access to LinkedIn tomorrow? Would your business, be impacted? And then you wrote, I think, yesterday's post, which you got a lot of engagement and, comments on, about you don't have to be good at everything. You as a marketer, you can't concentrate on everything. So I think that, our business, we just don't rely on LinkedIn at all. Doug hassles me all the time because sometimes I go missing in action for 2 weeks and then I come back on it, and we couldn't cope if we got it to work for us, I don't think. I know it sounds really weird, but I just don't think we're the business. We're a very hyper local business. We're not using LinkedIn to push something. Like Doug, Doug uses LinkedIn as his. Doug, would you use it as your primary channel for business, LinkedIn now?
It's my only business channel. That's why I put up that post yesterday, because many of my colleagues around Twitter got banned for a week, and I'm on many other clients' LinkedIn pages. And the thing that I'm learning is that LinkedIn is trying really, really hard to ban automation tools. So they've taken the ability to connect with 100 people a day to 100 people a week. They've taken really popular channels like the guest we had on last week, Leah Turner from England, who get really high traffic volumes on their profile. They ban them constantly over and over again because, well, according to them, they do not use automation tools. But the reason for banning them for a week was because of unusual profile activity.
Yeah.
And when I used to run automation tools back in the day for clients, you just downloaded a bot and you go ahead and you connect with tons and tons of people every day, hundreds of people a day. And they crack down on that, which makes sense. I've always felt uneasy doing it. But that's what they're doing. Any other social media platform, they haven't really done that. LinkedIn is very, very big on making sure that their platform is as pure as possible. And what do I mean by that? On Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you can have multiple accounts. LinkedIn, you can only have one. And you must have the right email. You must connect your experience to an actual company. You can't do that anywhere else. So LinkedIn tried really hard to own your data, much more than Facebook would. LinkedIn is hyper protective of its users, almost so much so that it hurts their best content creators, like Camille, like Shabnam, a whole bunch of different people who don't make any derogatory posts. They just do a lot of good stuff on LinkedIn. They share a lot of free value to a lot of people who need help learning how to make money online. They give it away for free constantly. And I just find it very strange that LinkedIn is so hyper-processed, like Camille just said, very hyper-processed focus. They lose the human element. They don't really realize who is driving the content on LinkedIn, and they hurt those types of people, which is a shame. As Camille just saying, she's starting to branch out now. She had no choice. I mean, now she's going up to Twitter, Discord. I'm on Discord, of all places. I have a 12-year-old son who games on Discord. I'm going on there last night. I'm like, what the heck is everybody talking about? I don't even get this platform. I'm 40 years old. I'm balding tremendously. I don't belong on Discord. Bye.
Doug's in the deck. This happens a lot, Camille, with Doug.
Hyper protective of bots and automation tools.
But let's face it, they're owned by Microsoft. You couldn't get any more process driven than that. That's probably, they're idiots. But see, but Camille, why aren't they banning all these people that use pods on LinkedIn? You can tell these people that post stuff and they get like, I don't know, 800, 900, 3,000, likes and 500 comments. You think this is not a person that's got genuine content, right?
Yeah, no, I think it could be the metrics themselves, like the things that they're deciding are a bad use of the platform, right? Or how they're deciding that I don't totally understand, but it does seem like you would be able to catch those people easier, like that the metrics should be changed so that they are more targeted to like the persona that you're talking about, right? Like if you can tell that we're automating, X number of in-mails per day, and you are commenting the same comment on 1,000 different profiles, like it seems like those would be like they have the technology to do that. And yeah, what Doug said was that unusual activity, that high traffic volume, that was like, basically the prompt that I got, or the warning that I got. And so the other thing was like, it was unclear too. It was like, maybe there's too much traffic going to my account, but I can't control that,
Right.
And so it was very confusing. Like, I think
wouldn't you think that they, as marketers, they'd want eyeballs, like anything to increase engagement or audience participation, surely should be a good thing. I mean, that's what we're all here for at the end of the day, I think, isn't it?
That would be my hope, is that if you are going to take as drastic of a step to shut someone down, like to completely shut them off the platform to the point where they're basically like, don't even bother making another profile, because if you're banned like once, you're not supposed to even be on the platform anymore. Like it's ID'd, like it's tied to you, right? Like to your persona, like you said, not just to a username. And so if you're going to take that drastic of a step, like I think that you should at least audit that person's profile, like look at the type of activity that they're doing, and so it shouldn't just be like the quantity of activity, it should be the quality of activity.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really like a better metric for these things. And so if you go into these individual cases, like me or Leah or whoever else, and you just look at it like using some sort of common sense, then I think you'd say, oh, okay, like this person's actually probably a good thing for a platform, like they're the reason that people are engaging, or they're the reason that these conversations are starting, and has the sentiment been mostly positive. Like if you look at all of those things, I think those are much better metrics for deciding if someone belongs on a platform or not. But it is a little disappointing. I mean, I understand like the regulations and what you're trying to prevent against, and being able to use all of that data that's on LinkedIn for phishing and for these other campaigns, like those are serious problems, and that people like fall into those traps, like because of very like sophisticated email campaigns or traps like that. And so I understand like where they're coming from, but I just wish that in the support phase that there would be a step to write to make it so that it's not innocent. So it's more innocent until proven guilty, and then instead of guilty and always guilty.
Don't you think there should be a proper appeals process where you can actually appeal to something, fill out a form, have it heard by a panel, and then like intelligent adults, not just nerds or geeks in a room somewhere, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly the process. The people that are talking to were very nice, but I just didn't get that much more clarity. Like I said, it was like the most clarity that I got was probably here are the different bullets of things that you have violated. And then I said, I haven't done any of those things. But then the conversation was kind of shut off after that. And then the other thing was just, the fact that it was page views that seemed to be like the problem. Page views, profile views, and connection requests. Like, so at least I know like those are some things to kind of avoid or not do as much of. But other than that, like there's no set limit that was told, that's even published. Like they don't publish any of that information. Most algorithms don't publish their algorithm, but that is a problem too, is it's hard to tell someone to follow the rules if there are no set rules published anywhere.
I totally agree with that because, I've been on social media for such a long time, not just as a consumer, as a marketer, on different platforms over the years. And LinkedIn is one of the most confusing platforms to be on sometimes because they're always moving the goalpost. Like one day they change the algorithm, but nobody knows about it. So you get penalized for posting certain things. Certain posts get your. Here's the biggest one that bugs me the most, the reshare button, right? You can reshare a post. They make it fun and clear right in front of you. And most people think, oh, God, I love what Camille said. Let me reshare it to my network. And guess what happened? LinkedIn gives you zero traffic for that. It's like, okay, so why bother put a reshare button if you're not going to boost it through the network? Why suppress something? Why even bother with that? They've yet to take out the reshare button. It's been going like that for years. I see people all the time resharing things, and there's only one like. But things like that, LinkedIn doesn't come out and say, "Don't do that. Here's why we have that. Here's what you should do better." I mean, imagine Twitter, for example, if you retweet it, and they provided that circular square, the whole thing, you clicked it, and it didn't work. Nobody would use it, right? So Twitter would take it off, right? But LinkedIn leaves it on and keep making people do stupid things. Like people in Las Vegas playing the slot machine, hoping to get lucky with the reshare button. So LinkedIn sometimes overcomplicates the most simplest things.
But I mean, I didn't even know, and this is how stupid I am, I didn't even know that LinkedIn increased their character count to 3,000 characters until I read somewhere. Like, why didn't they tell people that? Wouldn't you think that's fairly important if I'm busting my balls to try and keep it to 1,300 characters or whatever the hell we're supposed to keep it to. And then they make it, you can go longer. I'm thinking, what the bloody hell?
Yeah, yeah. I wish that there was like more communication and like transparency with these things of, it's almost like you're in some ways like trying to drive people away. Is that like I was like very frustrated. That was like toward the end of my my stages of grief. I would say it was just like, like sort of angry of like, okay, fine. Like I don't even want to be back on this platform if it's gonna be this way. Like if I can't understand like how to use the platform and if I can't talk to someone like through this, I was just like waiting for the point where I would get to like a level of support where they'd be like, okay, yeah, clearly this is a mistake. Like we'll just undo it. But unfortunately, like I didn't get to that until the end, and I still don't know why. I don't know like what it was that they were like, okay, we're basically gonna. It was essentially like we'll give you another chance, but it's like the last chance.
But what you did, you don't even know what you did wrong. That's like saying that's insane. See, I'm guessing though that let's say hypothetically you were still banned. I'm guessing that Dooley wouldn't be too happy about the fact that they just hired you. And let's be honest, you're hired because you're an influencer on a platform and very good at it. And then they say, well, hang on a second, our star recruit now can't actually do part of her job, which is what we hired her to do.
Yeah. So I mean, so that's like a very frustrating thing too, is that like we've been talking about, and like Doug said, like a lot of businesses are built on LinkedIn. Like Leah's a good example. Her whole business like is training people on LinkedIn, and she has a very big following. And so, when you're taking someone's like livelihood away, or you're taking like their ability to make a paycheck away, it's like very frustrating. And especially like being in my shoes of feeling like you don't have you can't do anything about it. And so my next step was actually I had recorded a little video response that I was going to try and get distributed somehow, but luckily I didn't have to do that. But
you should publish it. Come on, publish it. We don't care. Blame us. Tell us you were forced by an Australian guy and a bald deaf guy in Chicago. We'll take all the hit. They can ban our accounts. I don't care.
Well, I like to think I'm somewhat creative, so I think that I will like repurpose, redo those lyrics and do something else fun for Julie using that. But yeah, and I'm also just trying like not to anger the LinkedIn gods. So as much as as frustrating as the situation has been, and as much as during those stages I've been like like, forget it, I'm just going to start from scratch. For Twitter, like it takes a ton of time. Like we're talking about like 10 months, and it's a different platform, and it doesn't necessarily, it's not a sure thing, you know, like writing, I think, translates on different platforms, but I think like different people are just better suited for different platforms.
Yeah,
so there's that part of it, and then there is like, because there's so much data and just information like on that platform, it's easy to find like-minded people, right? Or to find someone with a similar role, or to find someone with a similar background and stuff. And so there are a lot of advantages to the platform, and like I have mostly good things to say about it. It's just this recent situation has been was frustrating.
So what would be the biggest, like, you know, for all the people out there that follow you, you know, that probably want to ask you the same question, what would be the biggest lesson or takeaway for you from that harrowing week?
Yeah, so I think to recap, the main things for me were, diversify, like not have all of your eggs in one basket. These aren't necessarily in order, because again, you'll hear me say lots of things like do one thing really well, and then move, you know, and then start to diversify. And I still kind of think that that's the case, but it's also because you don't have anything to lose at first too. You're just like still building, and so you can take more risks. And then I think it's like anything, it's like, you know, regular investing, you're investing your money, right? Toward the end, like you tend to be like less risky, right? And so it's kind of the same thing with building an audience. So I think I'm just thinking about it like an investment, thinking about diversifying, and how you're going to do that. You know, is it going to be a newsletter? Is it going to be a podcast? Like, what is that other medium going to be maybe? And then the other things were basically that were kind of interesting were just also spending like less time or having some sort of cutoff like for social media, I think was part of it too. So as kind of a forced, I can't think of the right word now, but as because I was like sort of forced to be off it, detox is kind of the word I was looking for. As sort of like a forced like detox of like not being on it for like a week. It was actually like, it was very stressful, but it was slightly liberating. And then I was like, I don't have to think of something for today. I've gotten kind of like out of this like cycle, and so there's pros and cons to that. Of like, it can be hard to like ramp back up and be as active like as you were, but I think it was also good in sort of like identifying, okay, even if I don't think that I, you know, viewed too many pages or had too much activity, for whatever reason, like they do think that. So like, one, I have to reconsider my activity levels if I want to stay on this platform. And then two, like I need to reconsider it for my own like well-being and like mental health. And so I think that is actually like an important lesson too, is that like, there's good connections, there are real connections that are on there. You make good friends and stuff, but it still doesn't substitute for real life, right? And like the connections and the just literally being outdoors, like the things that those types of interactions and just better time management like can do for your life. So I think those are two big ones for me.
So to talk about your recent career, Camille, with, you know, say from marketer hire, that's a goofy name, right? I don't know. I hope that doesn't offend them, but it's a goofy name to say.
It can be hard. Sometimes people say market hire, and or they'll do two words, so it does get mixed up a lot.
So did you get that job through LinkedIn, and then did you get the job through LinkedIn? Do you think that you were noticed for both roles through your presence on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think that they definitely knew that I existed because of LinkedIn. And then I think it's kind of twofold of like, people have to know that you exist to reach out to you. So in both cases, I didn't actively
look for jobs.
Like they reached out to me first, and in both cases I was interested in the job, and so I pursued it. I still had to do interviews, you know, still had to know what I was doing. But I think that it was in part because like, one, they knew that I existed, and then two, like they already knew the type of content that I could create, you know. And so it's basically substituting as work samples too. So I like to, it's nice when you can do a few different things at once, right? Is that actively be known for a certain thing, right? And so people just know your expertise and can reach out to you, for consulting or for like a job opportunity. But then also like to basically have your portfolio on social media, right? To have different like samples of how you think through things, and in some cases that could be strategy, like in if you're able to sort of articulate how you would think through a strategy, and then also just showing off like your writing skills, like how you're able to simplify a messaging. So you can do quite a few things like just by being active on a platform. But it's definitely helped me in my last 2 jobs.
I mean, I think that, and it goes back to when you were, banned, is that what would piss me off is that I've invested, let's say, a year, and I really only got re-engaged to LinkedIn when the pandemic hit. But, we've all sort of put a fair bit of blood, sweat and tears into creating content. You could argue some of it's been a lot better than others, but if we're subscribed to the fact of showing up every day and contributing, and I've built a great network of what I would consider great friends too, and I would be pissed off if they banned me or banned my account and I lost all of that digital footprint, and that year's worth of work. I wouldn't care about my future job prospects because I don't have any, because I'm unemployable. But I'd be certainly pissed at losing that, that whole network, right?
Yeah, that was like a sort of like a sad like realization at some point too, is like I had said, I knew a lot of people just through that platform. Didn't have like their data backed up or their contact backed up, and so if I wasn't connected with them on another platform, I wouldn't necessarily be able to recall everyone's name, like their first and last name.
Yeah. How would you?
Them on another platform, and so that was like a sad realization, I think. And then the other parts of it is losing the content that you've created and that you could potentially repurpose. I don't do that as much, but it's still nice to just have around, like to have to basically a well of information to kind of like pull from, because you can look at the same thing, a day later, and it can mean something totally different from you and take you in a different direction for content the next day. And so let
me ask another, well, both of you a question, because you're both great copywriters, but think about tomorrow's post. I haven't decided if I'll post anything tomorrow. It'll be depending on if Doug yells at me enough today. But think about tomorrow's post. Have you both written it in your head? Have you both decided what you're going to write about tomorrow?
I haven't. So it depends. I was a lot better with post ideas, and that I had like more of a backlog. Right. And then just with these last 2 jobs, like I had decided like, okay, I'm going to cut out like a few things, like, so I can just like fully focus on these jobs. And so, so since then, like it's just been like more, just in the moment. I do still write down content ideas as I'll have them. And I would say like the biggest, things for me to draw from are, I'll listen to kind of like podcasts in the morning. And then I'll try to draw from just like my day-to-day work, right? Like what's an insight like from today, or what's like a learning from today. So I do try and capture those things when I have them, because sometimes you'll have like this clarity, like this like one sentence, like that sums it up, like what I'm trying to express. And so I'll try and capture that like while it's fresh. Even if it's just like 1 sentence or 2 sentences, so that I'm not like starting from scratch. So I usually have something like that I'm going off for a post, but I almost never have something like fully fleshed out.
And Doug, what about you? Like what's tomorrow for you?
I make up my post with my coffee in the morning. I mean, I'm just so busy writing content for so many people that, the only time I write for myself is in the morning, right before my kids and wife wake up. I have a cup of coffee, it's quiet, and I'm just flipping through YouTube, or maybe I'm flipping through Twitter, and like similar to what she was talking about, I have a light bulb moment, and it's like, okay, I take a sentence, I run with it. I even wrote a post about this last month. It takes me less than 10 minutes to write a post, and that's not bragging. That's just simply, I'm just simply on my phone and I'm typing, drinking coffee, and I push send. And then I have people DM me that, hey, you spelled this wrong. I'm like, oh, shoot. Okay, thanks. But I don't recommend that for clients. Most people don't write as much as Camille and I do. I'm assuming she writes a lot. I write probably anywhere from 50 to 100 pieces of content per week. So my brain is already, I don't know, just taking free throw shots. Take 100 free throw shots a week. It's pretty easy to kind of shoot a free throw every once in a while. When we coach clients or work with companies, they're not used to that kind of mechanism to just sit down and bang something out minutes before it goes out. And maybe she's different, but for me, it's no different than taking free throw shots. If you don't put in that type of work, you really got to plan out your week a little bit better, maybe on a Sunday night, and plan out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and see what kind of ideas you could come up with. But of course, it works different for everybody.
Yeah, I think for me, it has a lot to do with making sure that I consume the type of information that'll inspire me to basically to learn something new so that I can post about it. Like I mainly like to post about things as I'm getting clarity on them, like as I'm learning them, basically, right? And so sometimes so there's kind of like different types of posts. There's like the things that I already know, which don't take as long to write because I already know them, and it's just a matter of realizing that other people don't know them, and that's like one way of putting it. There's that type of content. There's kind of like process content that's like, here are the checks for before you publish this blog post or whatever. So things that you kind of like already have, but then there are other things that do take me a while. And by a while, like there's different ways to think about it, but sometimes I'll have like a thought like a week ago that's like just a seed of an idea, and I'm not doing anything with it, but it's kind of like working itself out in my head for a week. And then like by the time that I sit down to write it should come naturally. Like that's the ideal state. But then there are other times when it's like I want to get back in, like right now it's like I want to get back in the swing of things. I hadn't been posting very much. I got kind of like lazy about it, sort of like we'll force lazy about it, but then like ramping back up. And so because of that, it's like, okay, well, my engagement's down because I haven't been on for a week. I'm like starting this new job. Like I'm wanting to hit like a certain level, and at this point I do feel like I know what great looks like. Like what I would consider great, like what I would read myself as I'm writing it. Basically, like, is this interesting enough for me to reread it? Because there's different ways that I would think through it. And so if there's enough, as I say, like content in your content. That's kind of the benchmark for me is if there is enough like substance in there, then even if it doesn't perform well, like if the social universe decides it doesn't perform well, like if I can be proud of it or at least learn something from it, then I'm okay spending like an hour trying to figure that thing out. And so that's been the case like a few different times, like this year of I have this idea, like as right now, I'm trying to figure out content strategy for my new job. And so that's something that I need to do anyways. And so if I can clarify it and understand it better for myself, and then use that clarity to help other people understand it, then it's sort of like a win-win. So it might feel like who would ever spend like an hour like on a post or 2 hours? But for me, it's like, it's accomplishing two things, right? It's like something that I would already need to spend that like deep thinking work to work out myself. And then I'm just of the mindset of like, as you are learning and growing and making things, like to sort of take other people along on that journey. Like it doesn't hurt you to share out in the open. And in fact, I think it's mostly a good thing. So
do you think have you had an employer give you guidance on what they want you to post about?
So not really. So at my last job, I was in charge of the LinkedIn page and our Twitter page, and so for that, yeah, there were certain things that we had to post, like promoting events, promoting our blog posts and stuff. And so it was more like there are things that we need to promote, but there's not like a set way that we need to do it. It's always been very open-ended. And then as far as what I share on my personal, there's never been any regulation or policing on that. And so that can be kind of fun too, because it's bonus. Like if I share company content or if I promote the company, like I think it's, if you can do it, it's helpful to do. And but I don't think it's something that should be policed or even could be policed. And
no, I agree.
The more that you leave it up to people, the better it's going to be. Like I'm always impressed. Like my coworker Zoe, she just promoted the webinar that we're doing on Thursday, which is about time management and about salespeople getting back their time and stuff. And she just shared like a personal story about, she happened to know the guy that was presenting. He had presented to her at a past job. It helped her to ramp up to like 130% quota. And so, you know what I mean? And no one told her to do that. She just knew to do that because it made sense to tell that story to promote this webinar. So the more that you leave it open-ended, but sort of encourage people to get active there, like it's really a win-win.
Good. All right, Camille. Well, I know you're really busy with your first week in your new job. Congratulations. I know Doug's got to go pick up his daughter, and we are super grateful for you coming on to our little humble podcast. And we were very well behaved because Doug said I had to behave and not say the F word too many times. So we have been very well behaved compared to our past podcasts. So that's your influence on us, making us better people. So
well, thank you. That's nice to know that that level of influence.
Yes.
It's my pleasure. So thank you for inviting me on. And I hope that we can stay in touch. And
yes,
I hope that I continue to have a LinkedIn so that we can stay in touch.
Yeah, good. Well, if you get banned again, don't you worry. The Aussie and the bald guy will come to your rescue. Don't you worry.
Okay, that is actually really reassuring. So
yes, okay. All right, Camille, you're a star. Thanks very much. See ya.
See ya. Bye.
Cheers.